Alright, most African Americans are detached from their African heritage, and we all know why. You're right, and you'll have, and I feel like the majority of them understand that. Like, they know they're from Africa, but they don't know too much about it, so there's a disconnect. That obviously makes sense. But what gets me is that you have, this portion of African Americans um, who claim no allegiance to Africa in terms of, they're not from there. As far as, you know what I mean, like, I don't know, they act as if, they were just born into slavery and that's where black people came from. Or that they came from fucking outer space. I remember even having conversations with people in college, and this is even in college, and you had some African Americans who wouldn't claim, like, they're from Africa or they had anything to do with Africa. Like, it was the last place on earth where they were from. I'm like, shit, I don't care what you are. If you're from Jamaica, you're from Africa. That's where you're native to. But anyways, the point I want to make is, it gets frustrating, you know what I mean? Because, my parents are African, so I'm African. But I also consider myself to be African American. And what gets me is when I hear some African Americans want to use references back to Africa to explain certain shit. For example, we were kings and queens in Africa. No, you weren't, because you said you're not from Africa. You're from America, so you were born into slavery. All you were slaves. And it's funny because every black person from Africa wasn't a king or queen. You had some chiefs, and you had his wives. Oh, but we were all kings and queens, so if we go over to Africa right now, we're going to be a king and we're going to be a queen. It's like all Asian people saying that, oh, you know what? I'm here in America, but you know what? Back home, I'm an emperor. Or I'm an empress. That's right. Hell yeah. Back in the day, boy, I was the emperor of this great vast land. I'm like, no, you weren't. You know what I mean? You had your emperors, of course. But you're every day. It's like you have to hype it up. An Asian person will say, you know what, I'm from China, I'm from wherever. You know what I mean? I don't have to say I'm an emperor. But for a lot of African Americans, oh, we were kings and we were queens. You were probably just average people living average lives doing what you had to do. Alright? The second myth that I hate is when you say, oh, African Americans are materialistic and they're flashy and they're vain and they always wear jewelry. You know what they're going to say? Oh, that's what we were doing in Africa. We used to wear fine jewelry and all that stuff. Okay, yes, there was time for dress up. In any ceremony, people dress up. That's in any culture. That's how it is. But a lot of the images you see are of chiefs. Just like when you see a king and a queen on the throne, you know what I mean, and they have all the diamonds in their crown and in their cane, and I don't know, whatever jewelry they wear. That's what you see. And that shit's not even, it's not even genetic. It's like, I don't understand how the practice of wearing jewelry and all that stuff got passed on through the 300 or so years of slavery when we didn't have anything. So how could that, being flashy and being vain, survive slavery? Right? And once again, how can you claim that if you're not from Africa? You were born as a slave. You didn't have any of that. Alright, second thing is, and I hear a lot of black men talk about, in Africa we had a lot of wives. That's right, we had a lot of wives. We had multiple marriages, blah, blah, blah. But the thing about it is, they took care of their wives and all their children. That's why today, I have fucking nephews older than me, right? and I have uncles younger than me. Just because, I just have a whole host of just, I don't even know what to say. I don't know if they're my uncles, I don't know if they're my aunts, but it's all because of, the practice of having more than one wife. My grandfather didn't do it, but my great-great-grandfather did. He had multiple wives, because it was kind of still practiced. Let me see. What other myths do people like to use? I don't want to say myth, but what other reasoning do people like to use? Oh, alright. And this one gets me. Monique dropped that movie Fat Girls a couple years back. And there was a scene where her and the dude went to Nigeria. I think it was Nigeria. And he made a scene, or he made a comment talking about, in my culture, the bigger a woman, the more prestige she has, the more value she has. And my uncles busted up because we was all watching it together. They were like, whoever said, African men love fat women. Not to put them down, by no means, but that's not the case. Alright? I understand where it comes from, but it's not even a physical attraction. Like, that's a different, you talk to your local anthropologist about that one. Alright? But once again, that whole, the bigger the better, and it's just like, come on now. You can't even use it because you don't claim Africa. You claim to just be from America. So that's why I don't understand. Why celebrate? Why try to embody things African if you don't accept that you're there? Why? Like, you don't want to accept the fact that you're from there, right? I'm not going to get into the why, but you want to use reasoning to explain some bullshit to why black people are flashy and that, we have to put rims on everything and, we have to wear big chains and shit that we can't afford every day because that's what we did in Africa. African people weren't walking around on a day-to-day basis with fine jewelry on. Ceremonial. So I can't even think of any other myths that people use or fake explanations. So if you think of any, let me know, please.